Originally released in 2005, Destroy All Humans was one of my favourite Pandemic Studios games. Even today, the simplistic carnage unleashed by Crypto137 puts a smile on my face. Coming off the back of a solid PS4, Xbox and PC release, Destroy All Humans Remake has landed on Nintendo's platform, boasting updated visuals, better controls and cut content. But does it hold up on the Switch, and is it worth the price of entry? Let's find out. Set in a caricature of Cold War era America where everything is blamed on communism, the game begins after Cryptosporidium 136 has been captured. His successor and our protagonist, Crypto, is sent to Earth to discover his whereabouts. Crypto shoots first and asks questions later, holding quite the grudge against the humans of Earth. There is constant back and forth between him and Orthopox 13, Crypto's emperor, often berating humans over their stupidity. Their dialogue is hit or miss, you either hate it or love it, and for me, I love it. There are all sorts of references like Men in Black or Men in very, very dark brown.
I say it's high time we abducted one of these men in really, really dark brown and gave him a good probing. What do you say? Up for a little fun?
At times it feels like an episode of The Simpsons with the sheer number of stereotypes. It's clear the original developer set out to create a satire of Cold War America, and it holds up even 16 years later. The voice lines are ripped from the PS2 version, so there is a notable quality drop, with a small amount of buzzing on Crypto's lines. But the great vocal performance still shines through. Apart from chit-chat between Crypto and Orthopox, the majority of the story is delivered through in-game cutscenes, which can look downright ugly at times on the docked Switch. I love the new art style and it looks beautiful on a PS4. The human character models are ripped right out of a Barbie dollhouse with a plasticky sheen over all of them. Or they would if the textures loaded. In some instances, the textures would fail to load for the duration of the cutscene. When there were no visual hiccups, the cutscenes expectedly looked worse than the PS4, but not so bad that it ruined my enjoyment of them. Spring some comic relief and ridiculous writing and you have a nice break from the gameplay that never outstayed its welcome. As the title suggests, we're here to destroy all humans and it doesn't disappoint here. Crypto is kitted out with a small array of weapons to electrocute, burn and probe as many Earth inhabitants as possible. The main weapon is the Zap-O-Matic, a beam of electricity that arcs through nearby enemies, and I had an absolute blast using this. Another standout is the Ion Detonator, a remotely activated bomb that decimates everything around it. Unfortunately, the same can't be said for the two remaining weapons. The Disintegrator Ray is a dull fiery blaster that has little to no feedback when shooting. And finally the Anal Probe. While funny, it's clunky to use, so I mostly ignored this. Now, two of the weapons missing the mark would be an issue if they were the only option in combat. Luckily, Crypto has psychokinesis and brain extractions. With these you can throw radioactive cows into the mix or fling enemies into whichever body of water you like. There is a satisfying pop noise when extracting brains from the enemies, and it only gets better with upgrades. The flow of combat has been improved drastically from the PS2 original, where you could execute one action at a time. In the remake you can shoot, use brain power and psychokinesis all at the same time, improving the fluidity of combat. On top of this, there are two additions that drastically improve the speed of gameplay. The dash and skate mechanic make Crypto infinitely smoother to control. Completing missions and collecting brains will net you DNA, a currency used to upgrade Crypto's abilities and his spaceship. And this is where Destroy All Humans excels. I love the sense of progression. In the beginning, Crypto feels quite weak, but after a few upgrades, his weapons and abilities become forces to be reckoned with. The Zap-O-Matic initially electrocuted one enemy, but after a few upgrades would arc towards multiple enemies. Combine this with the brain extraction affecting multiple enemies and it created an extremely satisfying loop of zapping enemies followed by a symphony of pops. But an extraterrestrial adventure wouldn't be complete without a spaceship, and Crypto's ship can be used to wipe whole towns off the face of the earth. With a handful of weapons at my disposal, not much could withstand the Death Ray, Sonic Boom and Quantum Deconstructor. While Destroy All Humans showed its age and its simplicity, it feels like it laid the groundwork for what open world sandbox games will become. Games to switch your brain off and enjoy some dumb fun. Arguably the most dated aspect is the mission structure, typically culminating in wreaking havoc across 6 different locations. Santa Modesta is a west coast seaside town filled with diners and sunny shores, and Capital City is a miniature version of Washington DC. There is a nice variety on show, from the muted palette of a nighttime rural town to the bright skies and buildings of the west coast. There are a handful of missions offered: escort missions, trailing missions, and stealth missions where you use the holobob disguise to infiltrate restricted areas, and a handful of combat missions either defending a point or causing as much carnage as possible. I hate, and I mean hate, trailing missions. It's beyond me why they exist. Walking slowly out of sight of an NPC is never appealing. I'm glad to say that these are sparse. The other mission types never got in the way and varied up gameplay nicely. One mission in particular had Hitman-like objectives, having to stealthily kill 3 scientists using environmental obstacles. It was only a short section, but it's the most unique mission in the game. Destroy All Humans is quite easy. It took me roughly 5 or 6 hours to beat it, and without optional objectives, I would have completed it a lot quicker. These come by way of specific criteria to meet before finishing a mission, acting almost like modular difficulty. In one mission you may be asked to infiltrate a base, and you will net DNA bonus if you do so without being detected, or my favourite are the combat specific objectives, where bonuses will be received by drowning X amount of enemies or killing them with explosive kills. 100% in the game will add a few more hours onto the game clock, and the majority of that time will be spent free roaming across 6 levels. Each one is filled with probes to collect and 4 challenges to complete. These come by way of foot races, combat challenges, and destruction and abduction challenges. Once again, these add a well-needed bit of variety. My favourite being the combat challenges where you must kill as many enemies as possible in the time limit to reach a 3-star rating. Without these challenges and optional objectives, Destroy All Humans would have been a bore. As for performance, well, it's just okay. On the PS4 it ran at a pretty smooth 1080p 60fps. The docked mode can be ugly at times, with pop-in galore and textures that refuse to load. Moving at high speeds and races expose these issues even more. Areas like Turnip Seed Farm are especially bad with hideous foliage and water. On PS4, Turnip Seed Farm had dense foliage and beautiful lighting, so there's a significant downgrade. What's strange is that Santa Modesta doesn't look half as bad on the Switch. The water looks relatively good and the foliage isn't offensive at all. The game excels in handheld. The jagged lines were nowhere near as egregious, and I would go as far to say that it looked good, especially in cutscenes where the texture loading issues occurred less frequently. Even performance is better in handheld. It's by no means perfect and there were noticeable drops in both modes, but they were less prominent on the 720p screen. The main trade-off is how tiny the text is in handheld mode, an issue that plagues too many ports on the Switch. The opening theme is fantastic, creating the vibe for Destroy All Humans perfectly. I just wish the rest of the music was as good. It's certainly not bad, but after listening to the soundtrack while writing this script, none of them stand out. During gameplay they elevate the carnage, but don't do enough to be memorable.
A planet your own size. You're dead, little man! You're stuck! Let's go! You want a piece? Drop your weapon! Clear the line!
If you have no other alternative, then Destroy All Humans on Nintendo Switch plays fine, with a fair few frame drops and noticeable jaggies and pop-in. But none of this was enough to ruin my enjoyment. For newcomers with no nostalgia for this 2005 classic, it might be a hard sell at $40 as the game design has showed its age. However, if you're looking for a portable, nostalgic romp, then there is some fun to be had here. For better or worse, they don't make games like this anymore. Yes, the mission structure might be basic, but I think the simplicity is where it shines. Sometimes we're not looking for 20 weapons, 12 levels, and loads of customization options. Mindless carnage is okay, and I think there are a few better examples of this than Destroy All Humans Remake, and that's why I like it a lot. Thanks for watching our review of Destroy All Humans Remake on the Nintendo Switch. I would love to know if you plan on picking this up in the comments down below. Don't forget to subscribe to GameXplain and check the videos out on the right, and I'll see you all next time.